This week on RSBANDB Update, binding contract familiars are buffed because Ripper demons are so popular. From Hellhounds to Blood Reavers to Kal'gerion Demons, we tell you where each should be used. Then the Jmods appear for a live stream detailing 2022 and impending server upgrades. This is RSBANDB Update, episode 867, recorded Thursday, February 3rd, 2022. Binding Hitboxes. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another episode of RSBANDB Update. Tanis, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Shane.
Also joining us this week, David, one of our resident PVM experts. Welcome back.
Hey.
David has been around the PVM block for a long time, done lots of impressive feats, some of which have involved you icing your wrists. That's one thing I always remember about you telling us about. Yeah, four-ticking, not necessarily the best thing for your repetitive strain injuries, but hey, nonetheless, of course. Welcome to RSBANDB Update, everybody. This week we are going to be going over the 20-year veteran cape, some changes to familiars, and of course the Modcast Q&A. So if you want to follow along with that, you can check out our show notes at update.rsbnb.com. And of course you can also fill out our Help Wanted form if you're interested in ever appearing on an episode of RSBANDB Update. If you want to help us with RSBANDB Informer article writing. If you want to help us with anything around the podcast, please do fill that out. If you have a very unique skill set that you'd like to share with us, please do fill that form out and get in touch with us. We do respond fairly quickly, and a number of the people who appeared on the show last year were actually folks who filled out that form. So if you've ever wanted to appear on Update and you feel you have something to offer to the table, please do fill that out at update.rsbnb.com/help. All right. Do we need help this week?
With what, Shane?
With the Veterans Cape, the 20-year Veterans Cape?
Well, somebody needs help, but I'm not sure who. I feel like we need some sedative help.
Oh God.
Yeah, just a we're a meditative help, collectively breathe, exhale.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's not that bad.
Cuz
you feel better? Right?
It's not that good.
Right. But it's not that bad. That's the important thing.
Like, in all honesty, I don't have a problem with this cape. I can see where some of the problems lie and what's up with the community on that. I can definitely see that as a legitimate concern. But I enjoy this cape. I'm gonna start off with the process about getting this. Of course, you talk to Hans in Lumbridge, who, if you've been around since the very beginning, February 27th, 2002, or 20 years of membership, you will be able to claim this Veterans Cape. And it, just like last year with the 20th anniversary celebrations, evoked a whole feeling of nostalgia for me, because I've been here since the very beginning with this. I realize I never played much of Classic when this cape would have been around, but it definitely was something that I took part in, and it really took off when RuneScape 2 launched, and that's when I count my official start in the game, is with RuneScape 2, and in particular that summer when I took out membership. And since then it's been a ever impressive journey, and a lot of people don't know this about the history of me, but I started RuneScape in earnest in the spring of 2004. Got membership in June of 2004, the end of June. And by August, we had a fan site, the RSBANDB.com fan site with signatures and calculators. And the following summer, the podcast was born. So you look at this, RuneScape and RSBANDB Update are pretty much the same thing for me in terms of general history. So it goes way back, and I was just overjoyed to get this cape this week.
You went all in, Shane. All in, right?
I did, and that's typically the way I do things, right?
That's good. You don't half-ass stuff.
Yeah, and I don't do things unless I know I can do them well. So there's that too. But the cape doesn't have any particles associated with it. There's lots of gold on the background. It uses that same gold texture we saw on places like the money tree and the various new metallic objects that have come into game. So there's that. It looks very impressive if you run it on a high-end computer. I do have some of the lighting options turned off right now on macOS, so people in the video version aren't seeing the full brilliance of the shininess on this effect here. In terms of questions about the cape, though, a lot of people were wondering, why are there 3 X's on the very bottom of it? It says X, 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 and then on the other side, there's 3 X's as well. So it's like 60? Why is there a 20 on the back, and then at the very bottom, it's like 60? Really? What are we talking about with 60? So that was a question I had with
it's
that.
the Illuminati, Shane, also known as the Cambridge Mob.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
That's
you didn't know about Aranon?
Oh God! Oh God! Yeah. And based on some of the comments we've seen about this cape this week, that would not surprise me in the least. And it looks very thin, and the tassels on it obviously have no life because we don't have cloth textures in game, despite capes would look a lot better if we did. But we all know what happened last time Jagex tried to redesign capes, right?
Yeah, I mean, but hey, I say do it, and you can always throw a toggle on, right? I mean, that's kind of what we've seen.
No, I mean, on it.
I mean, in some ways, I understood it the last time around, but in some ways, I don't know. Just a regular old pixelated 2008 looking cape, I don't think is the way to go. I mean, this should look like a crown jewel.
Yeah,
right?
The 15-year one has particles on it.
I mean, I that's cool. I mean, it's going to be a long time before I'm eligible for this cape.
Right.
And I hope the same thing doesn't happen that happened with the 10-year when that one came out, because I was still like a few years off. And by the time I was able to get the 10-year, well, full 120s were in full swing. Right. So it was like, But this one would be special. I wish
let's just add maybe some particles to it or something to that effect. Clarify what the 60 triple X times 2 is supposed to mean at the bottom, and the rest of the concerns with this, I honestly think would be dealt with if we had cloth textures to it. And I'm just going to talk about the fact that there's also an emote with this, and the emote itself is over the top. The 2 X's appear from the ground, and just when the first one appears and you think you're done, the second one appears, and there's sparks and fireworks that happen with that. So I'm thinking possibly the idea was, okay, let's actually put the emphasis on the emote this time, rather than the actual cape. And, you can make that argument, but people are going to see the cape, 90% of the time or more. So, but, I just like you said, everybody just needs to calm down with this, because the amount of hate I saw towards the game devs on this because of this cape this week is not acceptable.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
And until people started talking about it, I actually thought it looked pretty good myself.
I didn't see very many in the wild, and so I had to.
Well, I wanted to wear my farming cape. But
yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, this is something that you would wear just to be like, look, I've been here for 20 years.
yeah,
Um, it's something that you're going to get out just to show that this is not part of your fashionscape anyway. They're just, I don't know. It's just, I don't mean it's just a cape in like a diminishing way, but I mean it like it's just a cape, guys, in a like don't get riled up about it way.
yeah. There's no reason to get riled up about this, and I bet if you ask the majority of people who actually had such a thing, that they'd like the design.
You know, that's one thing that I wonder. When do you think this started, Shane? Do you think this started with the last art director? Or
No, this
is
goes
this
way back.
new?
This goes way back
Oh, this
to
goes even before then?
I think this probably goes way back to when they tried to rework the accomplishment capes, and then after that, when they tried to do the complicated comp cape rework. Because remember, people weren't on board with that until they saw pictures.
Yeah, I mean that's true. Well, and I was even looking at some of just the accomplishment capes that we have for, combat and skilling. I forget which round of capes this was, but they look really decent. Now, I'll grant you this doesn't look as good as some of those, but it doesn't look that bad.
Right, and sometimes a gaudy medal or a gaudy trophy is the best way to commemorate an event like this.
Well, that's kind of like, I mean, that is RuneScape, right?
Yeah.
Like in one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I don't have a problem with it, and I would say my only... I'd even be on the fence about adding the particles to it. I just wanted explanation for the 3 X's on the bottom.
That is weird.
And give me cloth textures so that the tassels move.
Yeah, that's a little... It's triple X. Yeah, I guess
Right?
it is that kind of fantasy game, huh?
Times 2.
Yeah, like, is that like the size? Like, what are you trying to say here?
This player's a 6X?
Yeah, right. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That is weird.
Yeah, and like I
they
said...
actually posted on their Instagram pretty recently, and the comments are so vicious.
Yeah.
It's a little sad to see.
And like you said,
you know what?
This is why we can't have nice things.
At least, be grateful for what we have. And what we have here is a decent cape that is not, I repeat, not an NFT.
Yeah, that would have been peak cringe, making it an NFT.
Right? So at least they're staying clear of that. Hey, not all game companies are. Just saying.
And there was a wonderful meme that went around this week. The original NFTs, these were the original NFTs of my childhood. And in it shows the original party hats, the Christmas cracker, the pumpkin, the Halloween mask, and whatnot. So in some ways, RuneScape already has its NFTs.
Yep, right.
It sure does.
Yep.
Hoping the green and black will one day join the list of those items. Green and black Santa hats.
The black pretty much has.
Yeah, I'm kicking myself now that I bought that green at $1 bill and it's approaching 500 mil.
Ooh.
Though
it takes a long time. I mean, Though
at this point, I mean, for anybody who wants to get in on this, now would be a perfect time to buy one of those, since it's only about 200 mil ish off of the golden party hat. So there's that.
Well, the black is 28 bill.
Okay, so that one went up. So I feel good about that.
Yeah.
Anyways,
that's not bad.
Don't take marketing advice from podcasters, folks. Anything else on the cape? I think that scratches that itch.
Mm-hmm.
I feel good about.
Then you might want to have that looked at, Shane.
The itch on your head, my friend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, All right.
And the itch on your head, Shane. This is going from bad to worse for you.
Yeah, it's just from where that green Santa hat's been sitting since Christmas. That's all.
I don't think you're supposed to put it there, Shane.
Oh, God.
Shane's not going to take. He's not going to take it off until it goes over a bill. He's going to will it. Will the market, Shane. Come on.
I mean, hey, I could go buy another one.
I just picture Shane with a sad look on his face with the green Santa hat on, just checking the grand exchange price.
Just every 5 minutes.
I'm actually gonna do that right now. .pc GSH. Is that gonna work? Yep. 558 currently.
Well,
Back.
if they don't re-release it, it'll go back up. Like if they don't re-release it next year, then it's going to go back up a lot.
Yeah, that's true. And just so everybody's aware, I'm actually just messing around, folks. I knew full well what I was getting into, and I had to have the hat because it was green. So I'm not actually upset about that. I was just pulling your legs. So. All right, let's talk about why David is here. How do you feel about the Ripper Demon changes from last week? I wanted to ask you.
Oh, well, as far as I know, they haven't patched the thing that I told you about, right?
Yeah, the alt plus dummy.
Yeah, so it's exactly the same, because to do the old method, you needed an alt, because you had an alt place a dummy, and then you would kill it and then you would place a second dummy, and then you'd attack the second dummy with the account you're killing it with. And now, instead of having the alt place a dummy, you just have the alt stand there. So it's actually better than before, because instead of having to waste your dummies, you don't even have to do that. You just stand there and do nothing.
How would you fix this?
How'd I fix this?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not a
let me just
so
actually tell you some of the ideas we had last week about this.
Okay.
Tannis's idea was to make the binding contracts untradeable, in that everybody would have to make their own rippers. Thaxie's was to double down on the scrolls so that Ripper scrolls are made in higher quantities than they are now from the pouch. And mine was just to make the arena so that this wouldn't be possible.
Well, so the first one, there's a game mode that exists for that. I prefer it.
It's called Iron Man.
Choose to create an account and then do that. So I don't think that mains should be forced. I don't think that they should ever make a tradable item untradeable, because I think there's a game mode that exists for people who want that playstyle. The second, that makes sense to me. Currently, even on Amlod Hour, you don't get that many scrolls per pouch, and the reason Ripper Demons are so desirable is mostly because the scrolls get used up at such an enormously fast rate. The third, so I think that in a player-owned Slayer dungeon, you could get around 350 Ripper Demon kills an hour if you just have 2 Rippers in there and you kill them with melee. And that seems good enough. It obviously forces you to play actively, whereas you can more or less AFK. Well, you can't really AFK them because you have to note paper the contracts.
Yeah.
So it would definitely increase prices significantly. I do think that if they were to do your idea, they would need to implement Thaxie's idea, or else the price would just get ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I don't really feel like PVM supplies being inaccessible is pretty.
2 nights ago, they were hovering at about 155 still. Do you have any idea what the Rippers are at today?
I'm not sure.
Okay. And I guess this is actually a good question to ask you, since your primary that you play nowadays is the Iron Man. With that, having to make your own Rippers, do you use Rippers, or how do you feel about it?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I use Rippers all the time because I primarily range still. So while Kal'gerion Demon is fantastic, it's probably not as good as Ripper Demons. on range.
Right.
It's obviously Kal'gerion Demon is much better now with magic. But yeah, I use Rippers pretty frequently, and it's fine. I just do some Slayer when I need more Ripper demons. I do some Slayer, and when I get a demons cluster task or a couple Ripper tasks, then I go and get all my pouches.
What would be the max price you'd pay
deal.
for Rippers if you were paying for them?
Well,
For
the pouch I would pay
for a pouch.
For a pouch, $250K would probably be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, even more, honestly. I think the way people look at PVM supplies to some extent is kind of strange because so many bosses are worth... Well, there's kind of two reasons. The first is that each boss kill is worth X amount of GP. It's pretty easy to calculate.
Yeah.
And if a Ripper Demon is the difference between getting 5 kills an hour and 6 kills an hour, then a lot of times that 6 kill will pay for the pouch. And the other thing is that most bosses in this game are all about rare drops. Like if you take Raksha, for example, and so getting one more roll on Greco is easily
per hour. That adds a lot to it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think $250K for a pouch is reasonable. $150K is good. Whatever it is fine. The scrolls are really where the cost goes in.
Yeah,
it's much more.
Yeah. When you use when you use Rippers, do you use the potion to refill the special attack?
Spam them.
Okay.
Spam them. Yeah. Spam them like my life depends on it.
Okay. And for anybody wondering what he's referring to, there's a number of potions in game that restore your familiar spell points that make it so that your familiar will actually be able to cast its spell more often than it does, because it will run out of that energy and then it won't be able to cast that. So
yeah, not everywhere. Like I wouldn't spam them at Hellweir or something.
No, of course not.
Anywhere,
of course not.
Anywhere decently high level, I spam Ripper pouches.
Okay.
Or Ripper scrolls.
Well, let's talk about the other ones, because this week they say, we've noticed the Ripper Demon is the familiar of choice for the majority of combat scenarios, so we've done a balancing pass on the lesser used familiars to give them a bit more potential. So we're going to go through these, and I want your opinion on them, and Tanis, feel free to chime in as well if you want. Starting off with the Hellhound. They say the Hellhound familiar was underwhelming. It had a niche as a tank option to help survive big bursts of damage, but the 10% damage reduction didn't offer enough benefits to outweigh the other options, such as the Beast of Burden or damage familiars. So as such, Hellhound's passive damage reduction effect has been increased from 10 to 20%. And it's worth noting with this that the Hellhound will die if you don't use the special scroll to heal it. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, not good. It still seems completely useless to me. It's potentially possible that somebody who doesn't have access to Animate Dead would be able to AFK certain things, or maybe it's possible that someone who is not using magic for some reason could AFK certain things, but it seems relatively low to mid-level at best. And if you have access to a pack yak and put blubbers in all 30 spots, that's 22,500 health points that you're carrying extra. So the only use I can think of is low or mid-level players who don't have Animate Dead. Maybe they can AFK things that they weren't able to AFK beforehand.
Yeah. Okay.
But the weird part about that is, isn't it a relatively high summoning level? Or is it
I think it's close to it's in the 70s. And
okay.
One thing that was interesting with this is that I had a Greg Reaper, 45 summoning for the Hellhound.
Very low. Okay.
Yeah, I had a Grigorovic Reaper this week, and I did the Reaper and I did an hour. I started off with the Ripper, but I also just did a test on all these other familiars that were buffed here with this. I did some kills with the Hellhound. I did some with the Blood Reaver and the Kal'gerion Demon and the like. And in terms of just being able to survive and get most kills without needing to bank, the outright winner was, of course, the Ripper, plus just, staying there and getting that damage out. obviously you're going to be able to stay for longer if you use a yak. So you balance that question of if you want to bring the yak or if you want to bring the Ripper for more damage. And the Hellhound, for me, where I was sitting for something like God Wars 2 content, really didn't feel like it had a spot. So I think we have to look lower to probably find a place to use the Hellhound as well. Because it didn't even work for me.
I would think that maybe the best use would be new accounts or new Ironmen who want to do God Wars Dungeon 1 without Soul Split.
That's what I was thinking.
That maybe the Hellhound lets you do General Grardor or Krill without having access to Soul Split and stay for a long period of time, since getting kill count is so annoying, and at a low level you probably don't have the totem. So I'm thinking Hellhound might be the God Wars Dungeon 1 familiar of choice for very low leveled accounts.
Yeah, something like that, I guess. What about Slayer?
Yeah, I just don't know where in Slayer. I think that the only use would be if you didn't want to spend money on a Scrimshaw of Vampirism for a task like Soul Devourers. I think maybe the Hellhound would make that more survivable. Or if you were under-leveled doing Corrupted Scorpions or something. Really Corrupted Workers, because Scorpion Worlds are never available.
Yeah.
So maybe there are a couple tasks where you could use a Hellhound. Yeah, assuming you don't have Animate Dead and you don't want to spend money on a Vamp Scrim, maybe Hellhound would let you survive. But I obviously haven't tested that. So
right, and the issue
sure.
And the issue with all this is that it's being compared to the Ripper Demon. And even before this, there was no question that anybody who is remotely considering using a Ripper Demon would consider a Hellhound. And that's still the case here, I think, unless you're saying that and I'm saying that looking at the mid-range PVM as well. So
yeah,
we got to look lower.
At best, it's low-end PVM. I don't think mid-range it makes any.
All right. Let's look at the Blood Reaver then. They say Blood Reaver has seen a bit more use recently as some players pair it with Cinderbanes to create a demon-based poison minigun. And on the whole, though it's not popular, we're adding some power to its scroll to increase its viability as a healing familiar, while also increasing its passive to hopefully appeal to players stacking life drain effects. So the HP has been increased from 8,300 to 20,000. Scroll effect decreased from 10% to 5%. Total healing overall has been increased. And heal to damage passive effect increased from 25 to 33%. And for anybody unaware, the Blood Reaver was the familiar that would heal you when you would do poison damage.
Yeah, so the Reaver was already fantastic before this. I was kind of shocked that they thought it was underused because I use it all the time. It's so good. There are definitely scenarios almost anywhere that you're doing mid-level PVM where you're AFKing with Soul Split. Reaver is better than Ripper Demon, and that also includes some Slayer tasks, probably most notably any Slayer task where you're AFKing with Legacy doing Blood Barrage. The Blood Barrage, each hit of the Blood Barrage has heals you, so you get even more.
And the Blood Siphon Scroll transfers 5% of the familiar's max health to your player. And so it can heal you.
That one's not super needed because I've never used scrolls before, but at Moss Golems, Normal Mode Carapac, Grigorovich, Vindicta, and Hellweir, I usually AFK those things. Normal Mode Carapac is more semi-AFK, but for all intents and purposes, there's AFK. In those places, Reaver was already the best familiar, so now it's even better. And it's just an incredible thing. You definitely want to take advantage of as many stacks as possible. So that would be Vampirism, Aura, Soul Split, Poison, as much poison as possible. Yep. So at places where you can use Emerald Bolts, those are excellent.
Cinderbanes, Poison Potions.
and Quorum Sticks.
Right.
And the amount of damage you do when you stack all of those things is just enormous.
And to me, this is one of the more weird ones, because deals 33% of your healing done as damage to the target, which on its own doesn't talk about the whole poison aspect, and poison isn't mentioned at all in here, and this is just something that we've figured out over time that makes the Blood Reavers so effective.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think I'm going to try one of these
Reaver,
next time I go Carapac and see how it compares to the...
You should, yeah. I mean, because phase 1 through 3, the only time you're using a protection prayer is when you dive bomb. I just tank the dive bomb completely. I
right.
just put on Prey Melee and just continue letting it go up. But yeah, and then phase 4 you Prey Magic, obviously. But for phase 1 through 3, you're just getting a ton of healing. And then if you have the Vampirism Aura on, which is what I use with this familiar, it even when you have Protect Melee or Protect Magic on, you're still getting a ton of hits because Cinderbanes, Quorum Sticks, and the potion plus the Vampirism Aura is a ton of healing.
I wonder about this. Do you think people will at all use this as a healing familiar, or is it just going to stay on its damage side?
What do you mean? Oh, for the scrolls?
Yeah.
Maybe. It tends to be used in places that basically require no food, because anywhere that requires food, I wouldn't AFK it and instead would be playing actively. And when you're playing actively, you're probably not using a Vampirism Aura, so that already takes away a lot of the Reaver healing. And generally, a Ripper Demon is going to be best when you're doing something that's super active.
Exactly.
And oftentimes, content that requires you to be super active, you can't just pray Soul Split the whole time.
Yeah.
So while the poison is certainly really good and strong, especially for using Emerald Bolts, it's hard for me to imagine it surpassing a Ripper Demon in places where you're really actively using abilities and prayer switching and stuff like that.
All right. So, I guess what you said at the beginning is true, that you feel that the changes to the Blood Reaver probably were not needed.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. I like it.
It adds another way to use the familiar.
Yeah, I think it definitely the increased damage from 25 to 33% just means that you're just killing stuff even faster than before, like Grigorovich or Moss Golems or Carapac. So, I mean, from that perspective, I guess I like it. More kills per hour is always fun, but
yeah,
I don't think it changes. I don't think there's like a place where I don't think there's a place that was on the borderline of being AFK that this suddenly
that it was changed by. All right.
Yeah, but definitely more kills per hour. I'm excited to use this at Moss Golems, which is now by far my favorite Slayer task after I discovered just how obscenely strong Legacy Mode Blood Barrage is there.
All right. The Kal'gerion Demons. They say these have fallen flat in almost all scenarios, only seeing usage when paired.
Wrong, but okay.
When paired, only seeing usage when paired with the Fractured Staff of Armadyl. So they're very, very wary of overbuffing it, given the strong synergy with any future critical strike buffs. As a result, we've decided to address the high input playstyle that is unappealing to a large proportion of the players and give it a small passive effect. So first, they come in with a bug fix where the Kal'gerion's special attack was incorrect given its damage rating, and they've updated it to use the intended attack speed, which increases the attack speed from every 4.8 seconds to every 2.4 seconds, so it's going to be twice as fast. For the critical scroll effect, the duration has been increased from 15 to 60 seconds, and the familiar has a new passive of giving a 1% critical strike chance to players using a Kal'gerion familiar.
Yeah, so this is just a straight up mage buff. I think, as we discussed in the last combat end of review, we knew that Magic desperately needed more buffs, and it was in a rough spot. And it's super important we prioritize bringing Magic up to date with, melee, for example, which we know to be the strongest style. Yeah, so I think this is kind of wild. I guess
like with this,
cool.
We're looking at a total 6% buff from this familiar if you use the scroll for 60 seconds.
Correct. So it is easily the best familiar with Magic. I think it's the best familiar even without FSOA, assuming that you're using Insight, Fear, and Tsunami rotations.
Okay.
Basically, I tested this. It basically feels like your adrenaline never drops below 100 when you're inside a spec after, with a Tsunami Insight Fear rotation. So you just get to Armadyl Battlestaff spec over and over and over and over. And it's glorious. So this is just a straight up just big mage buff. Anyone who's using Magic should use this familiar. It's very cheap in terms of the scrolls per hour because you only can use this. The spec lasts for 60 seconds. So you're only using it once a minute.
So are you going to... So would anybody use this to get this 6% crit chance in exchange of a Ripper Demon? Who would use that?
Magic, yeah. Anyone using Magic.
Anyone using Magic, okay.
Well, assuming you have Insight Fear.
Right.
Assuming you're using Insight Fear. If you're not using Insight Fear, then certainly do not use this familiar because it is very expensive.
And you feel that having the Fractured Staff of Armadyl is not a requirement as many feel it is for this? Okay.
It's not a requirement, but it makes it even more ridiculous. So with this familiar, it's very possible to do right around 1.4 mil damage per minute inside of an FSOA spec.
Yeah, that 10 is 1.4 million damage a minute.
So by comparison, over 5, that's about what melee does over 5 minutes. Magic can now do that per minute. Obviously, that's only inside of an FSOA spec.
Right. Hence why
it's not.
This is that critical build that we were talking about before.
Yeah, and it's just easier to use than it was before because instead of being 15 seconds, it's 60 seconds, and so it lasts for the whole duration of your Sunshine plus Extra. And so the way you would use this is just every time you Sunshine, you pop on the spec and go on.
Where would you use this?
I tested this everywhere. Anywhere and everywhere.
Anywhere and everywhere you use Magic. Okay. Because I know earlier in the week you were thinking it might have been more limited.
No, anywhere and everywhere that you use Magic.
What did your
test? Except for, I guess, Slayer.
What did your test tell you?
So I did some tests with Magic without FSOA. For me, it felt a lot stronger than a Ripper Demon and much cheaper to use by comparison because the only way the Ripper Demon is as good as this is if you're spamming summoning pots. Those are expensive. Right. Plus you're spamming scrolls, which are expensive. The pouch itself has gotten a lot. It hit 450k a couple days ago. I don't know what it is now.
Anybody who had those in their dungeon would have been having a fun time Monday.
Yeah, unfortunately you can't AFK them anymore because of the update, but you used to be able to AFK those in your dungeon. But yeah, it's really, really strong. I also tested it with ranged.
That was going to be my next question because all my high-end combat gear is in range, so I'm wondering, is there anywhere that this would benefit me?
Yeah, so I think that if you are spamming Ripper Demon scrolls with ranged, Ripper Demon is much better. In places where I think that it is comparable, but probably not quite as good if you are using scrolls, but not spamming them with potions, but not as good. And then in places that cannot be hit by familiars, it is, I think, from my limited testing, places like Virago, I preferred the Kal'gerion Demon to Ripper Demon. So if you were going to say do Araxor, I would definitely prefer the Kal'gerion Demon over the Ripper Demon for a place like Araxor.
Interesting.
Yeah. And in places where you need the accuracy of a Nihil, then a Nihil is still going to be the way to go. But at Araxor...
Nex and where else, basically?
Nex and Virago are basically the two places. Telos, kind of, but Telos is much better to use a damage familiar because, one, you're close enough. Two, if you're using magic, you've got the staff. You could also hammer it. Araxor, you have 100% accuracy these days. I think a lot of people still use a Nihil at Araxor because for the longest time you didn't have 100 at Araxor. These days you do, or it's so close to 100 that I think I would much prefer Kal'gerion Demon. The other thing with the Kal'gerion Demon and ranged is that if you're doing kills where prior to entry you're doing a natural instinct incendiary shot rotation on a dummy to build up the critical buff, then I think that a Kal'gerion Demon might be as good as a Ripper Demon, if not better.
And once again, though, we're talking about a very, very niche circumstance and something that you need to plan out and is very, very hard to do. So I guess the way I'd end this at the end of the day, of all these familiars, which one of these is the ordinary person going to get the most use out of? Which is Tanis going to get the most use out of?
Well, if Tanis wants to learn how to set up AFK God Wars Dungeon 2, then the Reaver, for sure. But it's not like the change affected like that was already true before Monday's update. I think that the most relevant buff is certainly the Kal'gerion Demon. It was already the best familiar to use with magic, and now it's even better than it was before. So they're basically every single record that has been attempted to be broken since Monday has been broken by a significant amount of time with the Kal'gerion Demon.
Okay.
There we have it.
Any questions, Tanis?
Did
we keep, and this is one thing I really need to be clear on, did we keep that in language that was easy to understand? Because I understood most everything of what was being said here. Do you have any questions?
I think it's easy enough to understand. It's just a very, RuneScape combat's very layered. So, I wouldn't have known the Insight Fear was a requirement for, I forget which one David was talking about, but so it's just the intersection of all that stuff. But no, the familiar conversation is pretty easy to follow. And I might even try it at Kal'gerion
at Karapak.
No, probably at the Mimic because that's more my style.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm kidding. Not there. I just got a Mimic token. That's why I said that.
Oh, okay. It would be interesting for you to go with a ranged revolution setup to Karapak and go Vampirism, Aura, Poison, Emerald Bolts, and just see what you could do at Karapak with that.
Yeah, that's the problem, Shane. But Karapak is too difficult. I can't. I can't tell what's going on.
Right, the field of view issue. I got you.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, is it good at the Arch Glacier? Because I like that one.
If you're using a Ripper Demon already, I'd probably stick with that for Arch Glacier.
Okay.
All right.
Because you need to use prayers a fair amount at the Arch Glacier.
Yeah. It's really only normal mode that you can soul split through that, but then at the same time, you really have to ask the question, do you want to be investing that much into normal mode kills? I don't know. Well,
so one last thing to kind of put the Kal'gerion Demon in perspective. So the Grimoire, right, cost about about 6 mil an hour to run, right?
Sure.
More or less. That's about what pages are. And the Ripper Demon is a 6% critical buff. The Grimoire can force 12%, right? So it's about twice as good as the Kal'gerion Demon. But the Kal'gerion Demon is probably about 500k an hour to run, whereas the Grimoire is like 6 mil an hour. So
Man.
it's very good bang for your buck for Magic users.
It just means
Yeah,
that
I mean,
more
for
people
that
need,
price,
and more people need to go killing those Lost Grove creatures.
It is a lot of Lost Grove creatures that you have to kill to get a single page.
Which is unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to move on and discuss the Modcast Q&A in just a little bit, but there are some extra patch notes to go through before we get to that point. It would appear as though that Shane forgot to open that up in his documents right now before we began, which is unfortunate, but I do have that ready to go right now. Alongside this, of course, we did also see a number of changes this week, a few on the Hetz Oasis again. Again, the Hetz Oasis has been appearing. Tanis and I were talking about that earlier, about what you'd lump that in as. Is an area update? Is it a skilling update? Yada, yada, yada. But the community event items that you might not have got before can now be unlocked as rare drop by skilling around the Oasis. So that means if you didn't get your Crocs, you can still pick them up.
ooh, all right. Get them Crocs, baby.
I'm wearing the Crocs.
Of
Beautiful.
course you are, Shane.
The dual arena destruction cutscene will now automatically play when talking to Ichlrid by the entrance instead of when entering the area. Yeah, it's a bit jarring when that happened. Moving on to the Eastern Lands, the Kamishima Sanctuary was visible from the Ark World map. This was unintended and has now been fixed, and this is the area that we saw in the Once Upon a Time quest that was another Eastern Lands map, which really, really raised the question, are we going to get another Eastern Lands expansion this year? Ooh.
Because that's always went so well.
Yeah, I mean, I think they know things that they didn't know last time and probably go differently this time.
Yeah, I always thought it got more grief than it should have, but
It was just grindy.
it's grindy. I know. Which is RuneScape.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Eastern Lands is great content. I don't remember why everyone hated it, but I don't think they hate it. I don't think very many people hated it. I think people just didn't like that it took so long to get their comp cape back.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Whatever.
They
They
were
do
salty.
grace periods now.
You got to go
yes,
for the
you do.
salty title.
But if they release the skull with a grace period, that'd be great. There's so many things that we need. Like, we need more Slayer creatures from 100 to 120. The skull would be a nice area for that.
They could throw another elite dungeon out there.
Ooh.
They sure could. Maybe that's where they give us the two-handed tier 95 crossbow.
Wonderful. Fixed an issue during the In Search of the Myrek quest where dialogue with Velioff was far too light to be read against the chat box background. And additionally, the NPC introductions and steel weapon list have been converted to pop-ups to make it easier to read and understand what you have left to complete or gather. The string jewelry spell icon included a small Zaros god symbol. This was unintentional and has now been removed.
I don't like this.
Okay.
Because because Zaros is the empty lord. He's pulling everyone on a string. Why would string jewelry not have a Zaros symbol? Doesn't that make sense?
Yes, it does. That's hilarious.
I thought that was on purpose. Because he's literally the puppet master.
Yeah, that's so funny now that you mention it.
They probably forgot. No one wrote that down when they did it, Why is this a Kazaro symbol? Oh, because he strings to... Yeah.
Amazing. Updated the font color on the Garden of Tranquility item list, and the text should now be easier to read. That was a request from a long time ago. It was to call Garden of Tranquilizers. Garden of Tranquilizers.
Only in RuneScape can you go into a major city with a massive fortress full of armored guards and just steal a statue of their god.
Oh, yeah.
And nothing goes wrong. They're just like, oh, yeah, take it.
And on mobile, released some new art for checkboxes. Whoop, whoop. Checkboxes look different. And there is also a note that says we have a number of community-requested fixes such as hitboxes. I mean, hitboxes.
Yes, that is a highly requested feature. How do we partake in said features, Shane?
I don't know. I don't even know what a hotbox.
Cabbage. Tannis, will you hotbox cabbage face bunch bonanza with me? That feels so on theme. Brassica would reward us for that behavior. I think.
I don't even know what a hotbox is.
Can we talk about this on the show, Tannis?
Of course you don't, Shane. Of course you don't.
Well, I'm sure the audience either knows what it is or can look it up.
I would imagine most of the audience knows what it is. I mean, there was a podcast called Hotboxing with Mike Tyson. I mean,
yeah. Well, what you said was super funny, Shane. I think that's all you need to know.
Yeah, sure. Anyways, community fixes including hitboxes and invisible fire in Cabbage Face Punch Bonanza are currently in testing for an engine update, and subject to passing testing, they hope to deploy these updates in early to mid-February. We have needed that for so long with hitboxes, going up ladders and whatnot. It's just really difficult. Certain bosses as well. So this has actually made doing Croesus really difficult too, I've found. So I am waiting for these hotbox changes. I mean, hitbox changes, sorry. God damn it, David, you're typing to me.
Now you're doing on purpose.
No, that wasn't on purpose. I glanced over to the second screen and I saw what you typed.
Now I'm just picturing Shane and like what do you drive, Shane? You got like yourself a big old Lincoln or something? You got
Yeah. I think Shane's the Lincoln Continental type for sure. He's got the Jordan Peterson on an 8-track in there, and then
no, I don't even like him.
Canadian icon though.
He flips the channel between him and Benny Boy.
Who?
Oh, Ben.
Oh,
Ben.
Ben Shapiro.
Uh-huh.
Oh God, no. You guys are right. You guys are right. I do listen to talk radio, but not those two.
And then that Canadian superstar Justin Bieber, the whole discography.
Nothing like getting Biebered.
Oh God. Well, that took us in an interesting direction.
You took us in an interesting direction, much like you might do if you were hotboxing, Shane.
Well, I saw fire and hit, and I kind of just mixed the two together, hot and hit boxes. So
yeah, fire and hit.
Yeah,
it goes.
Yeah, you were hitting the fire pretty hard. Yeah, I see it.
Okay, and
this is great for Iron Man, by the way, because Iron Man without seat aside is horrifying, and you have to go to Cabbage Face Punch for that. So that's good for early game Iron Man for sure.
And on that note, let's thank some Patreon supporters this week. This week, I'd like to thank Amos Reed, Andrew C., Arvids L., Big Huge Rat, Bryflex, Christian S., Chunk the Monk, Cook Me Plocks, Diana, Drama Free, Duramax, Hello Matey, Flaws of Man, Free Milk, Guy Lafleur, Jacob R., Jason S., Jeebus, Jesse W., Jim M., Kesky Plays, Ling01, Melanoric, Nate the Great, Nick G., Patty the Architect, Pernasius, Renhawk, Ricky A., Rippeth, Samuel FL, Sekotan, Scott DS, Seth W., Stop Eve, Taylor B., The Naked Captain, The Lion, Tim A., Tom V., and Zan. Thank you, everybody, for your support. It truly means the world to us, and as we are recording this, we have another monthly bit in the pipeline ready to go that you guys should be hearing right by the time that you guys get this episode, all and more available at patreon.com/RSBANDB. You can access that there as well as the entire back catalog of monthly bits. We also, with that, have last weekend's roundtable where we caught up with what we've been up to on RS and showcased a preview of the $200 Patreon reward, which will be going out soon. We're just finishing development on that. So everybody who was at the roundtable got a fun preview on that people are going to receive in the short term. But all that available and more for as little as $1 a month. If you want to pay $3 a month, we have our VIP tier, where you get a special VIP rank on Discord and a mention on the podcast at the start of the month, as well as high-quality stereo versions of the show. And for $5 a month, you'll receive a shout-out each and every week on the podcast and gain exclusive access to the outtakes we use to build the clip show at the end of the year. And this, of course, all would not be possible without you guys. So if you want a new monthly bit on skill reworks, check us out at patreon.com/RSBANDB. Tanis and Sirion and myself recorded that earlier today, and that'll be going out on the feed very, very soon. That was a fun one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one, and Shane really outdid himself with your design work there.
Yeah, you thought it was Sirion.
I did. I really did.
But we made the case for skill reworks, and we talked about why certain things can't be the full mining and smithing rework, and I think we almost got you on side with that, didn't we?
Yes. Except for two. For two.
Right. Okay. Well, just as a bit of a teaser, the skills that we talked about were woodcutting, thieving, and fire making. So just a bit of a teaser. If anybody's interested in hearing how we'd rework those skills, check us out at patreon.com/RSBANDB. But, of course, thanks so much to everybody for making this episode possible. All right. So, hotboxing aside, we have the Modcast General Q&A that happened on Wednesday with Mods Mike and Mod Jack, and Mod Hooley hosted this. I thought they did very well for this live stream this month. I feel like this was a A-tier live stream. Tanis, did you get to watch?
Yeah, I mean, I'd seen some highlights, and then I had went back and watched a little bit closer. Yeah, this wasn't bad. I think they accomplished what they probably needed to accomplish for this live stream.
Yeah, because there's a lot of questions about just where things were falling in the grand scheme of things with this, and I feel like that itch has been scratched, so that's good. So the first question, what does it mean when Jagex says that the Elder God Wars is in its closing stages? And what they mean by this is that they're going to be wrapping the storyline up. They're going to make sure it doesn't drag on. There will be a Grandmaster quest finale to wrap up the Elder God Wars narrative in the first half of the year. The 5th boss is being worked on. There's no details yet, and it will launch sometime over the summer. The storyline will end the quest, and the 5th boss will be part of that new storyline. How does that make you feel, David? A 5th boss after the quest?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. They said sometime in the summer, right?
Yep. And
yeah,
they said the question that they want the players all to be asking in the interim is, what is this entity that you're going to be fighting?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. Lore-wise, do you have an idea of what we're going to be fighting?
You know, honestly, I thought I knew where we were going when we were looking at one potential way to end it, but with Zamorak's recent antics, I honestly have no idea what we're going to be fighting at this point.
Yeah.
The community favorite seems to be something Erebus related with Zaros, perhaps.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I think that the last quest has to answer the question of what's going on there, and the end result of it would have to be something comes from Erebus and requires...
Because we've had the Tony thread, the Raksha thread, now the Zaros thread, all dealing with the monolith things that have either come out of it or been sucked into it, and no real answers have been provided with that. So,
I would think so. And it's very interesting what kind of boss it's going to be. It's hard for me to imagine it being a big group boss because those
are always hard to
orchestrate,
I think, in terms of teams, and we've seen that when they talk about teamwork going forward, they want to target that 3 range, maximum 5.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if they'll do another enrage mechanic boss.
I think we have enough of those.
Got one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think it could be really good. It's interesting to speculate on what the items might be.
Maybe it could be another elite dungeon.
Could be.
What if it was...
I don't think so, though. I think it'll be a standalone boss that you just enter.
What if they went way radical, right? Like, this is a crazy idea. But what if it had elements of all the bosses before, or maybe just a couple? What if it was a dual boss? One person's focused on scaling like in Croesus, the other's focused on killing the boss. But you have
that
to
might
work
be
together.
interesting. And then you could weave threads in as well from some of the other kind of inspirations we've seen.
The problem with that, though, is just hard to figure out how you would split rewards, because it's hard to imagine the skilling side requiring nearly as much effort
or as much risk.
As the PBM side, or as much risk. Yeah, all kinds of things. So
yeah,
I don't know how viable.
A question I wanted to ask you on this: would you rather see improvements to melee with this be dropped, or would you rather see tier 95 ranged in the reward space?
I don't see why there couldn't be room for both. I think that melee could probably be fixed with some greater versions of current abilities. In particular, Berserk could have some changes that would make it much more usable. But
like give it more adrenaline.
Ways to improve the adrenaline gain. I mean, I think that one of the most interesting suggestions is that instead of just being another dynamic adrenaline gain skill, you just make it so that Berserk allows you to attack much more quickly than the typical global cooldown.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Fit with the theme of Berserk, and in a way, it would be an adrenaline gainer because more abilities within global cooldown would mean you get adrenaline for each time you use those abilities. So I think that would be super cool. But yeah, I think I would like ideally some codexes for melee and then a tier 95 ranged weapon.
Would you do a bow? Would you do crossbows? Would you do a two-handed crossbow?
I think it would be two-handed because the last two were two-handed, and for tier 92s we got 3 tier 92s before we got tier 95s. Crossbow or bow, I'm not sure. I think that my preference would be probably... It's weird because splintering arrows are very good.
Yeah.
But there aren't that many places that they're very good. And so if it was a tier 95 crossbow, I do think that it wouldn't hurt that Eldritch crossbow too much because you would just use it in an EOF,
right?
Which is how it's used at the high end anyways. So I think that they could do that without it being difficult. The problem with it being a bow is that unless there are more areas where you could use splintering arrows to their fullest extent, it would immediately become an EOF weapon.
Very true. Very true.
Which I don't really like. So probably a two-handed crossbow would be my pick. But I wouldn't be too mad about it if it were a tier 95 bow.
All right. So, moving on from that to something a little bit more abstract. The question was asked, what kind of long-term thinking is applied to where the game goes next? And this is something that has been in our mind as well since October-ish or so. Mod Mike said it's about having a much more longer-term plan for not only the updates, but the lore involved. And with this, he says Mod Jack has been carrying that torch and is planning to carry it on into 2023 and beyond, which is going to be providing a huge directional impact for the game. And what they want players to imagine is having RuneScape have various seasons where each season would be geared towards something different. So you'd have your Elder God Wars season that we're just wrapping up, and it would provide a good point for players to jump in and start focusing on various sets of content. And they're trying to balance that with being more open and with big moments that can be created. So what does this tell us? I feel like the answer to this question is in many ways the answer players have been looking for, but this isn't the question that they wanted to ask to get that. What they wanted to ask to get that was, what is the new executive producer's name, and what is the roadmap going to look like for that? And I think this answers that right here, is that you're going to have your month-to-month headliners, but they're all going to be themed with a traditional story bent that are probably going to be carried on for about a year or so, as we saw last year with the Elder God Wars arc. And I feel like this question could have been framed in such a more dramatic way to create a bigger impact, but lo and behold, here we are.
Yeah, I think this has been done super well and super poorly. So I think batched content was super poorly executed. But I think something like Sliske's Countdown was fantastic. I think the thing that they need to remember is that this only works if it's story driven.
Yeah.
So the reason why God Wars Dungeon 3 has worked and Sliske's Endgame was so good was because there were so many story driven elements and quests.
Oh yeah.
I actually think Sliske's Endgame was the best because there was a quest every month or something like that, right?
Yeah. And
that was beautiful. So I think it has to be built around story, or it doesn't really work for me.
Tanis, I know you and I have been discussing this back and forth, and I want to know if you want to jump in here, or if I should weave this into the next one before I get your opinion on it.
Oh, why don't you weave your wicked web there, Shane?
Okay. And the reason it's so interesting tying this with the next question is because the question was asked that 5 to 6 month development time feels like a lot for a project, specifically talking about the boss and the quest that's coming up. And does this mean that there will be content droughts? And are there still going to be plans to have a monthly content agenda? And the answer to this is that 5 to 6 months isn't long, and that lead time for projects is normal in this day and age for RuneScape. And we asked Sirion about this at our monthly bit recording today, about what his opinion was on the fact that the project pipeline from start concept to delivery is 5 to 6 months. And he said, yeah, that sounds about right, given the way most of the games industry that works. And, sometimes there can be ones that are larger, ones that are bigger. And as an example of this, for them to get a candidate or get a update ready, it has to go into what's called a release candidate phase. And that phase itself is 2 weeks long, where the project is frozen and code freeze testing is done. And the answer from Mod Jack was, don't expect to see any changes on the content release timetable, which means you can still expect your monthly headliner. And Mod Mike underscored this by saying it's important to keep delivering good value monthly for the game, and the strong content updates have to have a reason to be there. And some updates that may have seemed random in the past are being tackled with this new seasonal structure. And I feel like everybody has been asking for the roadmap for this year, in particular, of what's going to be happening. But at the same time, a lot of people were always asking, do we really need to know everything that's happening week by week or month by month? I feel like what they have done is they've taken what the players have been collectively saying for the past 3 or 4 years and implemented that into their release strategy that we're seeing right now.
You know what it makes me think, and now having a little bit more time to kind of process it, it felt like we had a little bit of a content drought. And you explained that. I think we know
why.
Yeah.
It's because we got Hetz Oasis first week of the month, and then the February update is coming 3rd or 4th week of February. And that's just like what we did with our round tables. We did the December one early, we did the January one late.
But the other thing that I'm noticing is that's like the kind of like in the moment thing. That's what's happening right now in
Yeah.
the present.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, a lot of the promising things that Mod Warden brought seem to be carrying over. Doing this content, having story,
A strong brand
behind it.
identity behind it.
Yeah, so I mean I see a lot of good things that are being carried on in like the big picture goals,
Yeah.
you know. Um
And that was a
I'm five.
concern at the end of the year, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, like I said, I mean that makes me. I mean, it makes me feel a little better. Because you just never know. You just never know like how much is gonna stay in place, how much is gonna change, and I really felt we were in a good spot. Um, and 5 to 6 month timetable isn't that bad if you keep things going
Yeah,
at the same time.
and what I feel like has also happened here is I feel like the core decision making has been delegated down to the people like I forget Mod Mike's title. It's a title I always forget. But Mod Mike and Mod Jack seem to be pushing this forward to the point where most of what they were doing before under the Warden era has continued. And what I'm wondering is, was the whole reason we needed Mod Warden as EP back in the day, was that to get the entire company on this bandwagon of producing monthly headliners and focusing on making sure each release is special?
Well, and
And if
look at
that
the terms,
continues,
like
you can
each
look
thing
back
has
at his 10 years of
value,
success. Each thing of value was special, yeah.
right? Yeah. I think so.
And now we know that the new EP wanted to focus on technical side of it. What if he keeps most of that stuff the same and just focuses on the technical stuff that's been causing problems behind the scenes? Then you might have a really interesting combination of things happening. And for that,
and it would make sense.
And for that, that's why I think these two questions, the way they were asked right next to each other, they were asked with two different things in mind. But when you compare these and you look at the framing on the way the answers were, this was the answer to what players have always been asking. Where is the roadmap and what does 2023 look like, or 2022 look like? And I think that's really important to be highlighted. So,
Agreed.
I felt a lot better after seeing those, I will say that. And I was hoping you would too.
Yeah, I mean, it's all in the way you look at it. Initial reaction isn't always good, because you're going, whoa, 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 what's going on here? But I mean, once I kind of saw it in the filter of, and what I mean by that is they've done kind of piecemeal content before when it came down to individual devs or individual teams kind of just taking the game in all sorts of different directions, and that I'm wouldn't.
That's how you ended up with Romeo and Juliet and Camelot and RS.
That's something I wouldn't be in favor of. But if you think about it as, remember how Mod Warden talked about putting these captains of the ship, in the places that they need to be, and if you look at it like as a team basis, then you're going, okay, this is actually a continuation. This makes sense.
Yep. And that's what I saw with these two questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I was happy about that. Speaking of content, February, there's going to be a global buff event applying to Slayer, being announced soon.
Better get out there, Shane.
Oh.
The only way to do it is to do it.
There's also going to be a focus on some more free death weeks.
See, I like that. I wish they were. I wish they were just open, though. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like just particular bosses.
Yeah, well, we don't know what this one's going to be. I mean, it could
they will do that.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I'd like to have another open week or another Raksha week to fully take advantage of that and get some methods down for that one, because I was never able to sort that out solo in the time.
Either
that I had.
totally.
We did a very successful hour.
Yeah, we did a successful hour, but I need to figure out how to do it solo. I was not able to get a solo kill. So
it's a lot harder solo.
It is. Double XP live is coming February 18th to 28th. So now is the time to buy your supplies if you need that, or sell your Elder Rune stuff, Tannis, eventually. And after the double XP event, there will be the second path to the Creator's Yak track, this time focusing on Bic and Full. So I'm looking forward to that one, because if we're lucky, the Bic stuff should be green, so that should be fun.
I'm sure it will be. Green and brown.
Yeah, I could get behind that. Player avatar refresh, is it happening? And this was a summation of the project.
No.
No.
They bit off more than they could chew. In particular, helmets, hats, and shoes didn't work with the new player model. And the short story is that all the old helmets, headgear, and footgear would have to be tested individually and fixed, because there were a ton of clipping problems. They say they're very much attached to the project. It's not likely to release this year. They could potentially do a targeted beta to gather feedback about what the players like and do not like. And alongside this, Jagex has been looking for other graphical improvements to make. More dynamic lighting has been asked for a long time. And point light shadows will be arriving very soon with the end of February Slayer update. And basically what this does is this makes it so that when you're walking through an environment that's shadowed, rather than just lighting up the entire area, if you have light going through a window, the light will only shine through the glass and not necessarily the entire area. And the demos they showed on this look really, really good. So should be fun to see where this starts to work its way into the game. Always nice to see these graphical projects popping up. I wonder where this is, if this is in-game already, where they were running through. I don't know. But looked pretty good. So that'll be at the end of the month with the Slayer update, so we have that to look forward to. You guys want to have anything to say on the Avatar refresh? I feel like we already knew that. We don't really need to say much.
Yeah.
Data
it doesn't really bother me. I think our avatars are fine. I don't care.
Yeah,
I mean,
you just cover
if anything, there should be a reminder this week that, we could wait on the avatar. I mean, look what happens when you mess with a cape. Or put a cape, how you imagine.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. What it was learned from pre-death weeks in December, they said it was a positive experience, which I think everybody agrees with that. So no answer with that one. They said they got a lot of good feedback. It hasn't been all dissected yet in the data. It will help to inform other decisions to be made later this year. And the difficult thing when talking about economic issues is that any changes made or even anything said will have an effect on the economy. And specifically when it comes to this, they really can't say anything, but that it was a positive experience, and they haven't really started delving into the data yet.
Shane, you're an economist, right?
Yeah.
I have to you have to tell me why, like, they can't just do whatever they want to do and not even tell people and just control the economy and the market.
Well, like, if you start controlling the economy, in particular in terms of like if you were talking about limiting, say, the amount of certain items that were in game, that if you don't respond quick enough on that, you could have prices go up even more than they do now. So it's almost better to just have it run as an open system, as an open economy like we have right now, and deal with the inflationary problems that exist. And it would be really interesting to see, and I don't know if anybody's done this, and RuneScape would be a good candidate for this. It would be really interesting to see someone do a master's or PhD-based economic thesis on the RuneScape economy.
Okay.
So it's basically just a question of not being able to respond quick enough.
Oh.
to it. So, apparently people are making fake item reclaims.
Oh, yes.
Ooh.
To the point of, getting the free tier 95 weapons and such. Saying they lost something in a disconnect.
And a bunch of dies.
And dies.
There's a really good screenshot going around Twitter of someone who quick chatted that they've received like 2 shadow dies, 3 third age dies, 5 blood dies, and then they quick chat, I have completed 0 hard treasure trails.
Oh my gosh.
0 elite treasure trails, 0 master treasure trails. They that account got banned. But the fact that they were even able to do that is pretty funny.
Yeah, and the statement that they gave is that it effectively boils down to this. Item restoration is an important service for the players. It allows Jagex to restore items to the players. The service is offered because they believe it is the right thing to do, and they want to give all the players the benefit of the doubt, specifically after what happened with the login lockout last year. And they encourage everybody to play fair and use this service for genuine claims only. Ban level action has been taken, and they were very clear to say that this doesn't mean suspension. Actual bans and wealth adjustments have been done because of this, and reclaimed items given an error have been removed.
I'm glad that they didn't let the actions of a few screw up something that, I agree with them is important and helps to give people a little bit more confidence, especially when you have a system that, for whatever reason, can lag, things
cause
can
items
happen.
to disappear and you die and disconnect and who knows why.
Yeah.
And, I'm just going to speak from a generalist perspective here on this. If you ever need to use this system, the best thing for you to do is if you get disconnected and you lose some sort of item or something seems fishy after that, as soon as you log in and realize that, log out immediately. Don't use your account, because the closer that account is in state to where the event happened, the easier it is to see that you're telling the truth about that. It's kind of like preserving a crime scene, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sucks though, because then you're penalized your game time.
And I mean, hopefully the response time will be less than a day, but I don't know how RuneScape customer support is in this day and age. I've never had to use it, so who knows?
Who knows? But on the other hand, I'm glad that people that are abusing it are getting banned.
I used the system recently and thought it was a great experience. Pretty quick.
Well, what'd you need it for?
A Bagrada Rex egg.
How did you lose it?
Well, I was very forthright in my post, or my message I sent them. I accidentally sold them to the little troll. Like, I just got it from Big Game Hunter on my Iron Man.
Ooh.
And then I just accidentally sold them. I sold my Bagrada eggs to the little troll in Player Owned Farm, and I explained that I hadn't intended to do that, and they gave me back.
Oh wow, that's pretty nice. And how long did the entire process take?
I would say 2 days.
Okay, all right. So a little bit of a wait.
I wish this had been around when I left my tooth on the floor.
Oh, your Bando's tooth?
Yep. Never saw it. Just couldn't see it.
Janice, you got the pet. You got the pet.
What?
Well, you could probably get that one back.
Oh, this was like not too long after they came out, so we're talking years and years ago.
No, I just mean by going and killing.
Oh, doing it. Yeah.
Is there anything like Group Iron Man planned for RS3? In the past, they said there have been things like the high scores and seasonal aspects of it. They're looking at the demand they see in Old School, and it's not as pronounced as what Old School has. They're not saying it won't happen, but if they did, it would be specifically tailored to RS3. I feel like that. We knew that. Platinum tokens, they'd like to do them, but the technical problem is making them so that they actually work with the exchange, because right now they would be a trivial thing, otherwise known as an easy thing, to just add platinum tokens into the game that would effectively act as very large summoning shards, but that would only work for a small portion of the player base out there who does that kind of person-to-person trading. So instead, the effort, if needed when dealing with inflation, will be to make it so that could be used with the GE.
Be really careful about trading above max cash items, because one of my good friends, who is a smart person, he's a doctor, so theoretically a smart guy, he sold his Wand of Appraisal for 2.3 bill, but for some reason didn't totally check everything and ended up getting 230 mil for it.
Oh,
so just be careful.
Yeah, you really always got to be careful when trading with shards like that.
Yeah.
Will we be getting...
There are so many ways to scam with shards if you aren't watching very closely.
Yeah. Will we be getting a login lockout post-mortem? And the reason they haven't done this is their community management team is still half the size as it was last year. So they had to pick and choose their battles. And this is the same reason they haven't done a data stream. And the login lockout gave a lot of these things to consider internally, on things like new server technology, new physical servers, new software, and improving the robustness of old systems. And here's the interesting bit that came from this question that I saw nobody talking about, but I feel like everybody needs to know about. Occasionally, some of these system upgrades affect game updates. So what's actually happening when there's a longer game update period, or like the maintenance period they had about a week and a half ago, whole parts of their systems are actually being upgraded. So when so if you've noticed more maintenance windows recently, this is why they're actually performing these kind of upgrades behind the scenes.
Good. Healthy.
Right. And like, it would have been great to know this going in as to why these things are taking so long, but we find out through this live stream that this is actually happening. And the amount of people who I talk to who feel that, hey, we need these kind of game infrastructure updates, are they happening? Well, lo and behold, here they are. They're happening right under their nose when a game update takes longer than normal to deploy, or they do one of these additional maintenance periods. And I don't know why they couldn't have come out with this sooner, but everybody needs to know this. And I hope that if there was one section from this stream that people jumped up and down about and talked about a lot, I would hope it would be this one. Because everybody always talks about it, but nobody knows that it's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, please, share this far and wide if you listen to this live stream.
Share.
Sharing's
caring.
I wonder if we even need to make a nibble out of this, honestly. Just to, show that this is happening. Because I looked into what the general topics of this live stream were, and this was a question that was buried at the very far back of this, and as to whether or not it was going to be a topic that a lot of people were talking about, I don't know. So I hope at the end of the day that this is going to be something that people can take home and be happy about. So,
yep.
All right. Will Karamja be revisited? And this was interesting. The answer to this was that it's an entirely complex problem, because the fundamental idea of it is that it's a colonialist fantasy in the middle of a wild jungle that's inherently problematic for 2022.
That's a hard no. We're kind of sorry that this English company may have put in an island colonial-ish type thing. It's not a good look. So, no. That's a hard no.
And it boils down to that if they were ever to rework it, it would need to be reimagined and started from scratch.
Well, and hearkening back to the bit, that would be quite the endeavor,
Well,
huh?
yeah, imagining how many quests are also involved in that, right?
Yeah.
A huge number.
And skilling
Yeah.
content.
I mean, maybe a graphical rework would be more.
No, they said they wouldn't just do a graphical rework of it.
Well, I know, but that's what I'm saying. They just want to forget that's there. That's the island that Jagex forgot. Like the island time forgot. Yeah.
They also said
Yeah,
that it's
it
not.
is.
Go ahead, David.
It's quite bad. I think it should basically just nuke from the game. I mean, not the physical island, like
Yeah, and I mean, what they said is that it's not at the point where it needs to be destroyed and removed from the game for fear of Twitter backlash, but it's not something they would put in today. So that's where Karamja stands in that Karamja graphical rework that everybody's been asking for. So, similar vein, will content or like mini games be revived or enhanced in 2022? It's going to depend on updates that take you to a certain area, like was done with Draenor Manor. And then comes the topic of accessibility, which I figured was so good to hear this talked about again. They mentioned the scaling font changes that were made last year and interface scaling as well. The internal sense that they're conveying is that they haven't gone far enough on the accessibility bandwagon, which I'm sure you agree with, Tanis.
Yeah.
And they also need to be correctly dealing with it for players with visual impairments like colorblindness. And it's a project that's going to happen over time rather than in one big action.
Yeah, I mean, they echoed a lot of what I've been saying, right?
Yeah.
Like, because I have been thankful for the font and interface changes, and the art Glaker was, I mean, it was incredible. I mean, it was just the best and at the same time difficult to see. But look at Croesus, and I think they learned a lot from that. I hope.
Yeah.
So it's good though. Like it's not being forgotten, and and honestly, if I can be hawkish on this for a little bit, I don't think they can forget about it because you know some of the AAA titles are really, really making strides with accessibility. Um, your Forzas are just another level. So
Yeah.
they can't just they it has to be a consideration now.
Yeah.
As it should be.
Absolutely. One of the areas they want to look at is mobile, since the buttons are still too small and fiddly for many people. And effectively, it's going to be a process of going through all the UIs and searching for improvements that can be made.
Yeah, I can tell you just from my own experience that mobile really depends on if you're on tablet or phone. Sometimes.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's what I hear for RS3 Mobile is that the number one place people like playing it is actually on tablets.
Yeah, I have no trouble on a tablet. A phone, has to be a straight AFK, like touch one spot, but I can actually do a little bit. I mean, I do pretty well with the tablet. Now, I wouldn't be reading any boxes unless I was using my eSight or something,
Right.
but that's for just playing. Yeah, I like the tablet.
Now here's one that's very timely as well. What's the stance on skill reworks or moving skills to 120? Gee, we just talked about this today on the monthly
that
bit.
sounds
and
familiar.
I'm going to read this to you, and you say if we conveyed this before even looking at the live stream. The mining and smithing rework took 18 plus months, and most of what was put into it on par was with a new skill. And that's with 4 devs that were attached to it. The skill made the game better, but it didn't provide, from the player point of view, the investment that they were expecting back from it. Because of this, Mod Jack can't see a woodcutting or fletching rework happening to the scale of mining or smithing. And whether or not there can be a more cut-down version of that is a question for the content itself. Like when they asked with mining and smithing, should they just added masterwork on top of it? Well, the answer is now that with that, you can look at doing this for potentially other skills. They say the construction contracts and divination rework had an option, or had an impact rather, but they aren't the final solution. New leveling methods and rewards can be added, and the question should be asked is justifying the existence of a certain skill.
See, no, I feel like we got the right result and the right reasoning. I feel like the reasoning here, I'm sorry, I cannot accept that players don't feel that it was worth it. They don't feel that it was worth it. Players do feel like it was worth it. Like there's.
Well, see, the way I took that statement was that from the player perspective, if you're looking at, like we said, if you look at the mining and smithing from the tail end of it, you got levels 1 to 80. Most of the players who were interacting with this were probably at the higher end of that. So as a result of that, what I take that as is it didn't provide the player enough benefit, as in they didn't get to interact with that 1 to 70 or 1 to 80 content as much as Jagex would have liked for the time that was put into it. That's what I took from that.
Because we're always chasing this elusive new player that doesn't exist. But it was so successful that they had to come back and keep trying to tweak it and slow it down and do this and do that. Because, oh no, the ores crashed.
Yeah.
Like, it was popular. It's still popular.
Hmm.
You don't agree, David?
I don't think so. I don't think I agree that it's. I think that everyone thinks that more or less at this point that it was an improvement on the old system. But I think that if you polled 1,000 players and asked them, would you rather us spend 18 months on something similar to the mining and smithing rework or 18 months on a new skill, I don't think the results would be very close.
I think new skill would win.
Mining and smithing rework. Yeah, but I think it would win like 950 to 50.
No, there's no way. If I pulled it and said, do you want the rework to be a construction rework from the ground up?
Right, but you have to also keep in mind that you'd have to pull this with an entire representative sample of the RS community, not just people who listen to the show, not just people who are on Reddit, not just people who are in skilling clans.
And also, I just don't think, with construction in particular, the current system, I guess it depends if it came with a 120 with benefits from 99 to 120, then maybe more people would be in support of it. But the problem is that construction doesn't take very many hours to get to 99. Like, it takes some money.
It's expensive, but
money is plentiful at this point, and contracts make it much cheaper than it was before. But I did construction on my Iron Man recently, and it took a couple weeks to get all of the resources, to gather all the planks myself, and do the actual skill was probably 2 weeks. So do I want them to spend 18 months to rework content that requires me 2 weeks to complete to 99? I don't know if that sounds like a very good return on investment.
And you have to also ask with this, you just put a good deal of thought into that. If you put old shiny woodcutting rework versus new shiny unknown skill, what are people going to choose? And just make it more of an emotional choice with that, we have to say as well. So, like, I agree 100%, Tanis. I think if you polled veterans and just in general people who consider themselves skillers, I think they would take the mining or the woodcutting fletching rework. But I think if you polled the vast majority of the RS community, I think you'd get a new skill. So
Yeah, I mean, I keep thinking about what we talked about earlier,
yeah,
and it's not to give too much away, but what is that? What does the new skill look like? What
Well,
could
I
possibly
guess I'll
be added?
put it this way. When archaeology came out, we were in the same place. We would think, what could possibly be added? There's nothing left. Like, there's no reason to no one was thinking archaeology was a thing before it became a thing, right? And I think if you polled people, mining and smithing rework or archaeology, which update did you like better? I don't think it would be very close.
I would say archaeology.
Archaeology was incredible. It like that was like a bottom of the ninth World Series Grand Slam. And so, like, you're right that maybe we can't think of what new skill there would be, but we also thought that prior to archaeology.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't get too. I wouldn't make archaeology kind of my standard for comparison, because archaeology was catching lightning in a bottle. I don't think they could do it twice. I don't. There's. I wish that it could happen again. I don't ever see another archaeology like that.
Why
It
not,
was just
though?
perfect.
But
there's not a track record of archaeology. The track record is more like divination in invention, not archaeology.
You're totally right. You're totally right. But the reason that archaeology worked is that they combined lore with mini quest content, with AFK content, with the potential for some money upside and PVM upgrades. So they need a skill that checks those 5 boxes. If they had released if they'd released a divination plus invention simultaneously, right, which was the initial plan, divination plus invention, and then added in the lore content from archaeology, and that had been one update. Now, maybe that's too big of an update to expect, but for argument's sake, if div plus invention plus archaeology style lore to go along with it occurred, we would be talking about it in the same light as we do archaeology. Invention had XP imbalances when it came out, but ultimately,
did it
pretty fixable. Yeah. I mean, the release was bad because of XP rate issues,
and it was half of a skill.
Right, that's what I mean. Like, if they release a new skill that's batched with a bunch of bugs that was meant to be paired with a totally different skill and one skill, and that'll be bad. But I don't.
And,
I feel like
we can't even.
The devs deserve.
We can't even. But
our,
I just want to say one thing. We can't pin the success of archaeology on Mod Warden, and we can't pin the success of archaeology on catching lightning in a bottle. I honestly think what it was a case of good game design, putting the Mod Timbos of the world in charge. And I think if you did that again, then yes, you could redo archaeology, or at least capture that same spirit that was associated with it.
Yeah. The lightning in the bottle part of archaeology was everyone was out. That part, like, you're right in the sense that they can't replicate everyone being home and work not existing for the skills release. That was unreal. So that part's not replicable, but everything else is. I think the thing that archaeology really did that was completely novel and innovative was just making story and lore an integral part of the skill. And I don't think they'll release another skill without doing that alongside it, because they realized how important that was to that skill's success.
Yeah, I can see that. One final note on this. Another example of ways they could do this is rune crafting and the rune span. It was, in effect, a single mini game that replaced a lot of the training methods that were known for the previous years for the entire skill. So there's that. Anything else on skill reworks, Tannis, before we move on? I know this is a major passion area for you.
No, I just you know what? No matter where you come down, if new skills, reworks, whatever, I'll just be happy to get something of that size to begin with, because once again, you guys got to listen to this bit. But I'm not so sure that we're even looking at that type of,
Patreon.com/RSBNB.
Yep.
Yeah,
right, Shane?
You're right you're right on that, because I mean, we came down with the fact that a lot of what you could do is, it would be nice to take things to 120, and it would be nice to rework things from the ground up. You can accomplish a lot of that by just focusing on updates. So, I'm in that camp. 2 final questions. When will Melee get looked at? ModPie's answer to this, 2022. And there's no magic number for balancing Melee with ranged and magic, because it comes down to where distance is and is not important, in that there's just some bosses that you can't stand next to them in Melee distance to carry them out. And they say it will never be the case that all 3 combat styles are equally balanced. I agree with that. So,
I mean, that's the nature of creep, right? Whatever the last thing came out that made whatever style tiny bit better, then the next thing comes out is going to be a different style, make it just a tiny bit better,
Yeah.
But we've never had a situation where one of the 3 styles was 50% behind the other 2. Maybe 10%, 15%. We've never had a situation where Melee was less than half as much damage as Magic.
I honestly feel like Melee is the thing
that
used
can't continue.
It's the thing used for Slayer.
Is Melee half the damage now? Like, is that
at the high end?
Like
so
holy cow!
The high end Mage is around 450k DPM. Melee is around 225k, so it's right around 50% of the damage.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
rough.
And where would you put ranged?
Right in the middle.
Okay.
I think range was like 300, around there, maybe a little more.
All right, fair enough.
350.
And what about Valentine's Day? They'll be bringing back some treasure hunter rewards from years past, and more news on this over the coming weeks. And that's the Modcast.
Want the heart smacker thing? You know what I mean? You hit it and everyone gets XP boost.
Yeah, the staff.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, maybe that'll be in there. Now, they did also say the beach is coming back in the summer. So there's that. Dungeoneering.
Why is there summer in like August and our summer is like,
June, July? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like it should be then. But hey, it is what it is.
It is what it is. I'll strap on the old floaties and yeah, you got Crocs for the beach this year, Shane.
Yeah, I'll just wear them all year round. All right. Picks of the week. Tannis.
I have an interesting pick of the week this week, to say the least. And I anticipate Earth will probably be on the show to counter my pick next week. But I've been watching more TV than I used to. And in doing so, I thought there's a Star Trek series that I've always wanted to watch, and I never took the time to do so. And it's on Paramount Plus, and it is the Enterprise series. I actually really liked it. I know it catches a lot of crap. I know Captain Archer gets a lot of grief. And granted, it has the worst theme song of any show that's ever been made. I'll grant you that. But he kind of grows on you, and I love seeing this era in Star Trek that we hadn't really seen that much of up until that point. That era, right? Just the first steps of us going out and making contact with all these, different, the different aliens that we've all known, but to see like how that first meeting went, I don't know. I've really been enjoying it. So that's my pick of the week. Check out A Blast from the Past, and check out Enterprise.
Yeah, I don't hold it in contempt like many people do. It's not where I'd go to have the very top end Star Trek experience, but it definitely was at the tail end of what we call the Berman era, Rick Berman and company, and it accomplishes what it needed to do for that. So I feel like that's fine. And looking back on it, it's actually a lot easier to watch it now than it was in the past, because in season 3 they did like a 25 episode season focused on one story, whereas in the modern era serialized storytelling is all the rage, and this happened before that was a thing, before we had Netflix. Imagine if they would have done Enterprise as 4 seasons of serialized Star Trek with 10, 13 episodes each. It would have gone over a lot better than what happened in 2001 to 2004. So in many ways, it's the show that came before its time and suffered because of it. But in any case,
why is it the ones that I like are always the ones that people are like, icky?
I don't know.
Because I like Discovery too.
Yeah, I
like
think lots
Picard.
of people like Discovery.
I mean, I don't know.
All right, David, do you have a pick of the week?
I do. So my pick of the week is Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, which is a card game that has been around for a really long time. I think it came out in the United States around 2002.
Oh boy.
A lot of people my age probably remember playing Yu-Gi-Oh! On playgrounds, or like seeing it played on playgrounds. Master Duel is the first major kind of successful online simulator of the game. It's just like something like Hearthstone, where you could do free to play by playing the content and getting gems, and then destroy cards to get more gems to craft new cards. And there's another simulator they have, but it's a completely different format and a very pared down version. But for anyone who ever remembers playing that game, you can now play it online with lots of animations and graphics and a ladder system to gain rank and stuff like that. It's certainly better if you pay for cards, just like any online card simulator is. But
remember when we almost
totally
had a
viable.
RuneScape version of this?
We I mean, not almost. We did have it.
Yeah,
what was that called?
Chronicle, but they pulled the plug.
Chronicle, yes.
I really enjoyed it. I liked it.
I played some Chronicle. So it's kind of like that. Anyone who's played Hearthstone, it's just like Hearthstone, but it's Yu-Gi-Oh! The kind of classic.
All right, and it's available on Steam
now
as well, and looks like pretty much any game platform out there. PS4, 5, Xboxes, Switch.
It's on anywhere you want to play it. You can. It
all right.
Came out like 8 days ago, maybe.
Nice.
Oh wow.
Let's start with some achievements. What do you got for us, David?
So, Darkest Night with 99 mining on February 2nd. Lord Deluxe got 99 crafting on February 2nd. Zilcam got 120 invention on February 2nd. Lao Surfs got 120 fishing on February 1st. Jumpy Ninja with 99 fishing on January 31st. Tycho Elf got 120 ranged on January 31st. And Yahoo got 99 fishing on January 31st. Nicely
done. Cronia got 120 dungeoneering on the 30th. Bryflex got 120 archaeology on the 30th. Ubi Denubi with 120 invention. Cubon 008 with 99 rune crafting. And then Brusky 17 with 99 summoning on January the 29th.
All right, and then on the 28th, we have Borrow Sorrow with 99 archaeology. We've got Sangre Sani? Sangre Sani?
Sure.
With 99 archaeology. Then on the 27th, we had Lord Grimly with 120 Herblore. And Bond 008 with 99 Constitution. All right, nice job, guys.
Nicely done.
Everybody.
Nicely done. Remember the story from a few weeks back where they said when they were dealing with Revolution, they were going to call it with some other C name, but lots of people just kept calling it Constipation instead. So they went away from that. They didn't go with. God, I can't even remember what it was going to be called now, but it's good that they went with Revolution instead. Oh yeah, it was ModPie tweeting. Revolution was initially going to be called Conservation, but too many things being called cons and players consistently calling it Constipation during playtests led to the name being changed. Hence the cons in game.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what have we been up to?
There are a lot of cons in game.
Yeah, there still are. What have you been up to, Tannis?
So I think I told you last week I had finally smelted all my bars, and then I went back to mining, and we're back up to another about 10k light animica. So halfway to another 20k where I will then smelt again. I don't know. I think I'm gonna get rich. I'm gonna get 120 smithing. Well, I'm just gonna do all that. Just by Iron Man in the old mining.
I feel like the +4s is probably the sweet spot if you're looking to get rich.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna make the +4s. I'm gonna use some. I'm gonna sell some. Hell, I could probably sell what I had and get one of them green party hats while it's low.
Hats. Yeah. That's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I think, Tannis, your goal should be to Iron Man a green party hat from smithing only. I would be so impressed. In 30 years when you accomplish that, please let me know. I'll send you a card. I'll make you a poster and a t-shirt. I'll wear the t-shirt.
By that point, I will have to purchase my own preserved Jagex server because the game's been gone 10 years prior.
For the record, Green Party
don't say that.
Green Party hat looks to be
30 years. That's 50 years is a good
run. Good run. It looks like the Green Party hat is going for about 53 bill right now. So there.
53 bill? Did you say?
53 bill.
Yeah.
Ooh. That's rich.
I once bought a Green Party hat for 4 bill. I wish I had not sold.
Yep. How about you, David? What have you been up to?
Well, so I have been doing a lot of just general PVM on my Iron Man, and mostly focusing on Care Pack, trying to get the crit stick, and I've been doing some Solak so that hopefully I'll have a Grimoire by the time I get that thing. And so yeah, I've been enjoying that.
Oh, if there's a free Death Week, that's what I need to learn. I've been wanting to learn Hardcore Care Pack.
Yeah, that'd be great too. And then a lot of Virago. So those 3 bosses, Virago, Hard Mode Care Pack, and Solak have been my main focus lately.
All right.
And clues. I do a lot of clues now.
I good. Really I'm glad we've brought you around to that and converted you on that.
Yeah, they're a good time, and I need so many fortunate components. Still another 350 fortunate components to go. So I'll be at clues for a while.
All right. Sounds good. As for me, I've been continuing the daily farming on the alt and just doing dailies around there whenever that arrives, pushing certain skills higher. I discovered today that to truly benefit from the ranch out of time, I need to get 90 construction. So that's going to be a double XP task on the alt, believe it or not. But on the main, Reaper tasks, raids, and ticking off, believe it or not, comp cape requirements. I'm down to 6.
In there, Shane.
I have the Absolute Planker, which will be done on the Yak track, Master Skiller for 120 Dungeoneering, and Slayer. That'll be double XP. Bones to Peaches, I have the necessary points for it, but I just need the discount from the hard and elite desert task, so that'll be coming when I finish Dominion Tower, probably this weekend. Then just one token one from Klaus. That's going to be my last one I decided that I'm going to get. Then some music tracks from Dungeoneering as well, and then we're done.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've had comp for a long time, but I can't wear it right now because of Absolute Planker and Crocodile Hunter.
Oh, they made Crocodile Hunter a lot more compelling last week to do. So there's that.
That's good. I'll recomp eventually, I suppose.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what I've been up to, and of course, just throw the usuals in, like farming, maybe a daily here or there, and that pretty much sums up the RuneScape experience for the week for me since we last chatted. But with that being said, thank you for being here, David. I always appreciate your input on the combat side of things when it comes to that high-end familiar game. I know the listeners do as well. So if you guys like that. Please do give us a like and subscribe on YouTube. The podcast is there at youtube.com/RSBANDB. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Amazon, Pocket Cast, Stitcher, and more. Your favorite podcast listener should have us. If it doesn't, let us know. We'll do what we can to get there. And if your client supports reviews, do leave us a review. It helps in the rankings. But with that being said, we'll be back next week for another episode of RSBANDB Update. See you then, everyone. Take care.
See ya.